Okay, and we're live. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Sheila Lillis. I work for the Center for Career and Professional Development here at Sacred Heart University. I specifically counsel and advise our graduate students in the Welch College of Business and Technology. So I see so many familiar faces and names, so thanks to all of you who are joining us this evening, especially with the 65-degree weather that we're having here. And I understand that the ice rink on campus is now a swimming pool. So thank you for being with us here tonight instead of out in the quad having fun. Although hopefully this will be fun for all of you as you move along your career journey, and hopefully you'll find tonight's event to be super informative and educational, and most importantly, hopefully very helpful. So as you all know, tonight's event is our HR Sales and Operations virtual webinar. We're actually very lucky to be hosting and featuring a number of our Sacred Heart graduates, one two-time graduate, and then we have two other alum that are joining us this evening who both received their undergraduate degrees here. It is part of our ongoing recruitment week. So for those of you who may have missed our previous events last week and this week, don't despair. Friday, we actually will be devoting our day to providing everybody with some updates, additional information on the events and employers that have actually been on campus these past 2 weeks. It'll be, and in case you missed an event, there'll be all sorts of additional employer information that can be picked up in our office in McMahon Commons. So I encourage everyone to stop over at McMahon on Friday if there were events and presentations that you perhaps may have missed that would like to learn a little bit more about. So tonight's event obviously is for all of you. I'm thankful that all of you have decided to join us tonight. I'm thrilled with the number of students that are in attendance. And obviously this event is for you. So please, by all means, jot notes down in the chat box, ask questions of our presenters if you have them. And hopefully this event tonight can be much more of a conversation than a presentation, because we obviously want it to be as interactive and as educational as possible. So if you have a question, please feel free to share it. We would love to hear it. And so let me begin by welcoming our panel. Paul Link is actually a supply chain manager at Sikorsky, which is a Lockheed Martin company. He is a two-time Sacred Heart graduate. Where is Paul in the Zoom screen here? Oh, there he is. Okay, so he's in the middle of, yep, right, he's here in the bottom of my screen. And Stephanie Antashak is also with us this evening. She is also a Sacred Heart alum. She's the manager of human resources at Fidelity Investments. Stephanie, you're top left. And then last but not least is Jeff Benedetti. He is a vice president, North American sales at Titan HQ. And all three of them are here obviously to represent each discipline within the career community that we have of HR sales and operations. Obviously, Paul being on the operational supply chain side, Stephanie obviously on the human resources side, and Jeff on the sales. So Paul, I think we had decided to have you kick off the evening. So if you could provide us just with a brief bio about yourself, and then obviously all the students that are in attendance here, please feel free to ask questions of Paul, either via the chat box or just via Zoom.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. So yeah, my name is Paul Link. I'm actually a two-time Sacred Heart University grad. I completed my undergraduate degree in business administration back in 2013. Essentially right after I completed my undergrad, I jumped into the MBA program, and I obtained my MBA in 2014. I was a member of the Sacred Heart football team while I was a student. So still follow the football program closely, and great to see that the program's doing well. But, I really enjoyed my time at Sacred Heart. I will say it absolutely prepared me, for a professional role, with a large company. The experience was invaluable. And, I do attribute a lot of my, current career success to what I learned at Sacred Heart. So after I obtained my MBA in 2014, I at the time I had a strong interest in supply chain operations, manufacturing. I didn't really know specifically what industry I wanted to get into. At the time, I was considering sort of tech, retail, pharmaceuticals, sort of like the healthcare realm. And my brother he's an engineer at Pratt and Whitney. And he said, hey, why don't you apply at Sikorsky? It's not too far from Sacred Heart. And I said, sure, let me submit an application. So I applied. I was fortunate enough to get an interview, and, the interview went well, and I was given a job working in delivery assurance, which is sort of a component of, our overall supply chain organization at Sikorsky. So I've been with the company since 2014, sort of increasing levels of roles and responsibilities within supply chain, primarily supporting our production programs, right? So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Sikorsky, we're a helicopter manufacturer, right? So we design and manufacture helicopters, primarily in support of the Department of Defense, different business units. So the U.S. Air Force, Army, Marines, as well as we do a fair amount of commercial work as well. So after about 5 years with the company, I decided I wanted to continue my academic experience as well. So I applied for a master's program at Penn State University in supply chain. And I was able to obtain a master's in supply chain from Penn State. Shortly after that, I jumped over to my current role, which is still within supply chain at Sikorsky. I work on our combat rescue helicopter program, which is a production program where we're building 113 aircraft for the U.S. Air Force. And my current role on that platform is I am the avionics supply chain manager. So I have a team of subcontract professionals that report in through me, and we procure all the different avionics material that's required to build and sustain the CRH aircraft.
Okay, an amazing career journey so far. The one thing that struck me, Paul, was when you said you returned for your MBA, you had a strong interest in supply chain. What sparked that interest? Was it a class you had taken?
Yeah.
You're laughing. That must have been a good story with regards to that answer.
It's kind of cheesy, to be honest, but my father actually worked in supply chain. I'll be totally honest. So I was interested in supply chain before I even knew what it was. As a little kid, it was commonly back then referred to as like logistics generally. But so that just as a young age, right, I had that family connection where, I had a role model in my life who was working in that line of business. So I, of course, had some general interest in it. I took courses right early on throughout college. I sort of structured, the courses I was taking. I did a few independent studies with professors who specialized in supply chain. And, I just had a strong interest, especially in manufacturing. At the time I was really, really interested in sort of like the life cycle of products, right? How do things come to be what they are today? And then I quickly realized, right, it's actually a very, very large network of, hundreds of companies in many instances that all contribute to this end product. And so, I at the time I thought, it's a bit niche, right? I thought, that's probably a plus for me to sort of find something that, is a little bit more niche or specific. But it also, like I said, it really, piqued my interest, and I've come to be pretty passionate for it. So I definitely have a strong passion and interest in supply chain operations today.
Okay, thank you. And if you were to kind of define, how your graduate degree has actually helped you in your current role, when you think about, whether it was classes or specific skills, whether they be technical or even experiential experiential learning that had taken place during your time here obtaining your graduate degree. How do you feel that has impacted, your journey? Obviously, I know you said you then pursued your master's in supply chain, but on the MBA side, how have you applied that to your daily role?
Oh, no, yeah, it was absolutely has played a very big impact for me. I think, it's sort of difficult to understand all of the different functions of a business, right? And like how large things can actually be at scale, right? So, I mean, having the experience from all of the different aspects of, marketing, sort of operations, accounting, finance, sales, right? That really helped me sort of piece together the bigger picture in my mind, to be able to understand, right, how successful companies operate. And it's not by working in silos, right? Successful companies, all of those different streams of the business collaborate well together. And, when you do that, obviously there's a good outcome. So the MBA for me was critical. It really opened up my eyes and gave me a better understanding of, the depth of general business.
Right. So it sounds as if, just to your point, the depth and the breadth of the exposure that you had receiving your graduate degree essentially allowed you to essentially refine your focus, right? So having the broad exposure allowed you to be, to be that much more educated and informed, which is obviously why holding webinars like this one we are this evening is so helpful for students, because it is a little overwhelming, right? It's a master's of business administration, and it can be applied in any way, in any capacity, in any discipline, in any industry. So thank you. That's super helpful.
If I could I just wanted to jump in for a second. When we started the supply chain minor, Paul, obviously I reached out to Paul, and he was kind enough also to put me in touch with his dad, who had a very senior role at CBS in supply chain. And I guess one of the things that changed, back in my day, thousands of years ago, supply chain was a purchasing man. He or she, and it was usually he went around the world, just bought stuff as cheaply as he could and said, okay, now you. A place like Sikorsky has, when Paul and I talked about it, he said the biggest training aspect of what he does there is teamwork. And Paul, if I'm phrasing, just jump in, because it is such a team-based, from start to finish, for them to get a helicopter out the door, or, any piece of military sophisticated equipment, it's got to basically be a pretty flawless process. And that's teamwork, because as Paul said, you can't know everything about everything. I'll stop there, but Paul, you may want to.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. And I will say it's both internal and external teamwork, right? I mean, right. Sikorsky, Lockheed Martin were the prime contract for this particular aircraft program. We are reliant on hundreds of other companies, right, that share a common goal as we do. It requires, like I said, internal collaboration, extremely tight external collaboration, right, to make sure that, like I said, hundreds of suppliers are essentially working to the same sheet of music to understand, demand, schedule schedule requirements, the whole quality piece. And of course, in today's world, right, where there's a ton of focus on cost, it's also the whole lean manufacturing piece, right, where it's, we try to have product be as lean as we can from an inventory perspective. So the whole timing, right, it's essentially a huge collaboration effort between external suppliers as well as all the different internal functions of the business to make sure we're all collaborating well, working to a common goal. And, when that happens, obviously there's great output, but it's difficult to do, right? Technology has certainly helped us, especially with the pandemic and, working in such a more digital environment right now. And that's exciting, right? That's a big plus in the industry right now, is to see all of these different organizations using technology to increase collaboration and make sure we're all, producing goods, services, per plan. So it's been exciting.
Thank you, Paul. So Stephanie, we'd love to hear a bit about your journey. Stephanie actually holds a really neat role. She's essentially HR for HR. So at Fidelity, so I'll let her tell you a little bit about herself and her journey to date.
Sure. Well, thank you. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. This is definitely a great first step in figuring out what you want to do with your career. So I graduated from Sacred Heart in 2019. So I'm about, 2.5 years out. I majored in business management with minors in HR and psychology. So I knew fairly early on HR was where I wanted to be. I held 3 great internships throughout my college career. 2 of which was just because I wanted more experience. 1 was because I had to for the internship credits. So happy I was able to have 3. And then I also was on the club softball team. I was a part of Alpha Kappa Psi, the business fraternity, and also in Chi Omega. So I tried to be as active as I could be on campus. Definitely something that I was able to talk a lot about for my interviews for my full-time job. Eventually, this is on the horizon. Eventually, I do want to get my degree in IO psychology. So going back to school to get that. Haven't applied, haven't done any of that yet, but it's definitely on the plan. So when I first got my job, so I was an HR rotational associate. So over the course of 2 years, I rotated through 4 different HR businesses. And then in June, so this past June 2021, I got my final placement. So currently my role is I work on the HR for HR team as a manager. I do a whole slew of things, and that's kind of a theme with HR. You do a whole slew of things. But I can kind of walk through the rotational program, the time I spent, and then what I kind of do now. So throughout my first rotation, I was on the leave of absence and accommodations team. So what does that mean? I was on the phone because Fidelity is 60,000 people. So we're a small city, if you think about it. And how do we help our associates through their leave options? So when maybe it's parental leave, your spouse is pregnant, or you're, and trying to adopt a child, what does that look like? How can we support you as a firm? Your parents are sick, your children are sick, you're sick yourself. How can we help you? What are you, through the laws, through FMLA, what can we offer you? And then being Fidelity, we are a privately held company, so we're able to offer some more benefits than some of our publicly held companies. We're able to kind of do ADA, which is additional accommodations if we need to, help out and support. So my role was to answer those phone calls, educate our associates, and then get them through the process. I will say, not my favorite, did not love it, but we were happy because I was in a rotational program, so I was able to move out of that role into my second role, where I was on the university talent team. So I was a recruiter for university students. And then I also worked with the internship program. And at this time, that's when COVID happened. So all of our stuff went home. And I was really heavily recruiting for our phone roles. So if you were to call up Fidelity's main line and want to talk to someone, I was recruiting the people you were talking to, helping people get their Series 7, 63, all of those fun licenses. So I was a recruiter doing a lot of recruiting. I will say also wasn't my favorite job. It was just a lot of talking on the phone, all of that. And then my third rotation, I was on the HR for HR team. So what I'm doing now, I actually went back to this role after the rotational program. And when I say we do a whole slew of things, we do everything. So compensation, we look at market data, making sure that all of our associates are getting paid out fairly equally and that they're being paid to market. And then also I work with employee relations issues. So you're having an issue with your manager, I step in and I help you kind of work through that. I work with leaders if they want to have an org change, they want to redesign the structure of their team. I work with them to help them best, get that going. If there's a new leader on the team, I help them assimilate to the team, and looking at themes and helping with all of that. And then my fourth rotation, I was, so we have a business unit called Fidelity Charitable. So if you wanted to have an account with Fidelity, where all of the money that you put, maybe $20 paycheck, goes into that Fidelity Charitable account, it grows, and then we help you make the payment to whatever charity you would want to pay out to. We will match and all of that. So it's a really great program, but that business is about 100 people. So we call it an HR business partner. That's how we define that role, but it's really an HR generalist. And I was doing the same work. So whatever that team needed, whether it was opening a requisition because they want to hire more people, interviewing people if they wanted to, join the team, I worked on that. Org design, org structure, compensation, bonuses, all that fun stuff I worked on for that fourth rotation. And then now moving into the rotation, not the rotation, but my full-time role. I'm an HR for HR manager, like I had mentioned. And what I had talked about, my third rotation is pretty much what I'm doing now. And I also work with midline and frontline managers. So making sure that our managers are happy and comfortable. The nuance here is that my business is HR. So if you think about it, HR, we go out and we're deployed to all the businesses. So there's a personal investing business unit, Fidelity Institutional, Fidelity Charitable, a whole slew of them. There's about 1,400 HR professionals supporting 60,000 people. Who's actually supporting those 1,400 professionals? That's where my team comes in. So I help all of HRLT, or HR leadership team, and I support making sure that we have all of our recs filled. Again, everyone's paid fairly and equally to market, where you have all the correct promotions, that they're getting the correct percentage. And then the fun stuff like org design and making sure everyone's happy and comfortable. And I will say HR definitely has the stigma of being transactional. But we're really truly moving away from that. And I will say with Professor Andrassi's class, I learned so much, and I take what I learned in that class with me. I actually emailed her about this all the time, because for me to build trust with my businesses, I need to take data and talk through the data. So what trends are we seeing? I look at trends through data, and then what solutions can I bring to the table? Because it's really important to trust with your businesses. And because of Professor Andrassi, I know how to do that. So that's a little bit more about what I do.
Oh, that's really terrific. And I think just the sheer rotational aspect of your program, it sounds like was tremendously helpful in allowing you to determine, and oftentimes students aren't as lucky to land, into the program that you've landed into. So that's terrific. So I will ask the same question that I asked of Paul. Obviously you two were, you were a business management major. I know you had actually focused on HR and psychology, but how did you, was there a certain time in your career here at Sacred Heart that you decided that you want to pursue human resources? Was it a specific class that you took? Because again, I usually meet with a lot of students that are a management major, and that in and of itself, can be defined in a number of ways. So how did you choose the human resources route?
Yeah, sure. And this is definitely something, and I will just give you a little insight for all your interviews coming up. You will answer this question every single time. Why did you choose your major? So definitely get ready to answer that. But a lot of, when I first went into school, I wanted to do psychology. Love the brain, love, figuring out why people do what they do, act out how they act. Then I figured out I needed to go to more schooling to actually do anything with that degree. So I was like, that's not what I want to do right now, not into that. So I was looking, my dad is in the business world. I was like, there has to be something in the business school that, speaks to me. I was, ended up just taking an HR class. I don't really know how I landed in it. I guess my advisor really had my back. So they put me in that intro class to HR and it just stuck. I loved everything about it. I loved the breadth of work that I have exposure to, and the trust that, you know, the organization has with HR. I love working with people and talking to people and all of that. HR is way more than that. It's not just about being someone to talk to. There's a lot more that goes into it, but that is a big piece of it. So I just saw a lot of parallels between psychology and HR. And then, yeah, like I said, it just stuck.
Well, that's great. And it also sounds like obviously a lot of the classes that you took here, even though it's in the business school and human resources can be defined as a bit of an art, it actually sounds like it's actually helped you and tremendously just with regards to, you know, mining the data and to your point, kind of interpreting the data, and then most importantly, selling the data, you know, to your clients and those that you partner with in the business across all of your business lines, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you. And Jeff Benedetti, where is he? Oh, there he is.
Right here.
So Jeff is actually going to talk about, he's got a really cool career, Datto, Apple. He's worked at a number of very notable firms, and obviously most recently he is at Titan HQ as a VP in North America sales.
Yes. So I'll give you guys and gals quick overview of my background, what I've done. And if you have any questions, I don't know if there's going to be a roundtable, but please feel free to ask away. I went to the University of Connecticut, graduated in 2004 with an economics degree. I have a strong entrepreneurial spirit. I had a small business I ran when I was in high school and college, and I really loved working for myself. So I wanted to start a business when I was in college, and I really couldn't think of anything like a great idea or great business model that I wanted to get into. So I learned more about sales and just running go-to-market, marketing and sales for corporations. And it intrigued me because there's a lot of similarities, and you know, you can really define your own destiny, if you will, from a career standpoint, etc. So graduated economics, went to work for a company called Tech Depot. It was Office Depot's technology division. So basically we went into Office Depot corporate accounts and sold them technology to their IT buyers. Worked with some pretty cool customers, Mohegan Sun, Stanley Black & Decker, Aetna Insurance, did some really cool deals with them. And I was there for 5 years. And what I noticed while I was at Tech Depot is that there were people that were in sales that, you know, they were farther on in their career than I was. And I noticed that they were all chasing money. And that was like, they woke up every day to chase the dollar, to get the sale, to get the commission check, to get the next sale, to get the next dollar, to get the next commission check. And I kind of took a step back and decided that I didn't want that for me. I wanted to broaden and diversify my skill set and become more of an operator and a leader in sales and marketing. And, you know, I'm an operator as well. And that's when I reached out to Professor Macari and, you know, wiggled my way into the MBA program at Sacred Heart. It was hard to get in for me because, you know, school wasn't always like, UConn was a big challenge for me, but I was able to graduate. I think it was a 3.8, Professor Macari, hold me accountable there. You know, so I decided that I was going to get my MBA. Went on to do that while working for Apple. I ran a B2B technology sales team at Apple. So I got to Apple when the iPad first launched. Steve Jobs passed away when I was an employee there. Really learned about operational excellence, how a business with arguably the most successful business the world's ever seen. I think they have the most cash on hand than any other company in the world that's publicly traded. Has transparency and crazy growth rates. So I learned like what that looked like. And once again, entrepreneurial spirit, working for a big company. There's a lot of great things working for a big company, but you know, I really didn't have the opportunity to make a significant impact or really build something. And that's something I found that I enjoyed. Like anytime I had a project or really saw an opportunity to take something and make it my own, I really enjoyed that. And I love people and I love achieving goals and I love the competition. I just love business. Like I really enjoy what I do. So I started to look for like growth type companies, venture backed companies that were trying to disrupt markets. And I was fortunate enough to find a company named Datto. If you're not familiar with Datto, you should definitely familiarize yourself with Datto, especially those that are in the Southern Connecticut area. I found Datto in 2015. They were on Inc. 500 top fastest growing companies. The CEO and founder, Austin McCord, was on Forbes 30 under 30 list. And I got in there as actually right after my MBA. I started looking for a job and I wanted to stay in leadership. So I started running like a cold calling team there just to get in, because they just received $100 million round of funding. They were doing a ton of investing in the market and stuff like that. And it's a security data type product sold to, the enterprise type deal. And we went from $80 million in sales to $500 million in sales. I was a 200th employee. We went to 1,500 employees in 4 years, which is like professor. And we had 40% EBITDA, if not 50% EBITDA along the way. So Professor Macari, those are some good numbers, right? Yeah. Professor Macari is one of my favorite people at Sacred Heart. I really enjoy seeing him and being here with him tonight. So it was a unicorn. The unicorn's defined by a privately held company worth over $1 billion that is growing at over 40% year over year. And we were blowing that out of the water. So after we got to a place, we were acquired by Vista Private Equity for $1.5 billion. My team went from 5 cold callers to 60 sales reps. I had a whole floor of a building. It was just insane experience for me. And honestly, like, it started because I got my MBA. I was competing against another guy that had similar background to me, and I got the job because I had an MBA and that person did it. So, okay, good for me, right? Got my ROI on the MBA investment. Then I went on to work I wanted to stay in growth companies. I like the venture-backed stuff. I like, building something, seeing it to an exit, and then moving on to my next venture type company, because it's just really it's really gritty and it's really exciting. And there's tons of challenges. Like, if I were to tell you about what I saw today, it's just, there's always something different, right? So I started with a company called Scout Cybersecurity. They're actually owned by some pretty impressive backers. RSE, they own Hudson Yards, Miami Dolphins, Equinox Fitness, Milk Bar. They own a lot of like different types of companies. And Clear Sky, which is a spinoff of Blackstone, which is by far one of the largest cybersecurity investors in the globe, in the world, right? So went there. We went from just under 10 million in 18 months to over 20. So crazy growth there. We had another big acquisition just this past summer. So kind of what happens to people like me when their companies are acquired is there's like, you're part of the transition, but you're going to go on to do something else. It's not a forever type role for you. So at the top of this year, I started with another company that just received similar type funding. And basically they're a company that's out in Ireland called Titan HQ, another cybersecurity company. And I'm building an office actually in Shelton, Connecticut, hiring. Actually, if anyone's out there looking for go-to-market, sales, marketing type functions, I'm hiring a team right now. I'm signing up an office lease, going to build out a team of 40 there. So growth companies, it's definitely an interesting, unique challenge. Like, not a lot of things set up for you. You have to go out and build everything, but the reward is typically strong. So
Yeah. Would one of the things I think that students sometimes get a misrepresentation of is obviously cold calling. There's a certain level of determination, push. But one of the things I think that's changed, again, the perception is salespeople is the used car salesman standing in front of you, giving you a line of baloney.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about, especially in technology projects.
Yeah.
It's a much more strategic process.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you calling that out, Professor Macari. Sales definitely has different types of connotations to it. At the end of the day, like, I really don't care. You can't care what people think, right? Like, you have to be happy. I guess when it comes to technology sales, like, let me just take a step back. There's different types of sales processes and there's different types of buyers' journeys. that you will take or a salesperson will take, and that defines the level of sophistication. So you think about a commodity sale. Like, when's the last time you went on and bought something? You went to Best Buy to look at, I don't know, a TV. Chances are you went on Amazon and bought it because it's a better price and it's the same thing. But if you're buying a solution, or like even, I'm sure, Paul, in supply chain, right? You're looking at, there's some commodity sales or some solution sales that you're looking at, and you're trying to put the right pieces in place to support your business. As it comes to corporate strategic solution sales, where what my company is doing is, the companies I work for, they are an extension of an internal IT team's infrastructure, meaning that we are like the security arm for various pieces of their business model and their security framework. It's sometimes it's price driven, but you have to go in there with a strategic solution sales type mindset. And really, you can't just go in and like, this is my price. Like, the last thing you want to do is talk about price. You have to bring in strategic people throughout the organization, sitting down with a chief security officer or a CTO, a CEO. You're presenting sometimes to boards that are making decisions on the security platform and the security infrastructure of their organization. The typical deal length, or like working with a customer to bring on a new service, is extremely lengthy, and it's extremely competitive, and your creativity is tested every single day. Your business savvy's tested every single day. And honestly, like, I tie it back to my MBA. Like, I'm going into organizations, sitting down with strong people, smart people, and talking to them about business use cases, return on investment, how this will impact their risk profile, or when, like, if they were not to take this investment, what would that look like in regards to a risk or downtime for their business? Real true business conversations. And yeah, sales does have a negative connotation, but sometimes it has a negative connotation, but I don't feel like I'm out there, and definitely don't hire people that have this mentality that they're out there just trying to wheel and deal, but they're actually like strategic salespeople that are adding value and are driving revenue for the business. Like, typically the number one goal of a business is to drive revenue. So salespeople have a big value typically within an organization. So hope I answered your question there, Professor Makari. I'm actually, if you don't mind, I can put the link to my LinkedIn in my profile. Again, I'm building a team, and if that's not the reason I joined tonight, but if anyone wants to reach out, be happy to have a conversation and or talk about any type of career path, anything personal around your career path, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Yeah, and if you can find Jeff's, if not, if you could see it there, connect with me, and I'm connected with Jeff, and I'll help you make that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. Okay, Jeff, thanks. That was so incredibly helpful. So it's interesting. So obviously you're in a hiring mode, and obviously probably the majority of our students that are on this evening are, hopeful to secure employment in the next year or a couple of years. When you think about, because obviously you have seen a very big transition, especially within your world of right, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, pre-pandemic, pandemic, and then hopefully now we're kind of moving into the endemic phase. And oftentimes, so many conversations that we have with students are centered around keywords and specific skills that employers are using, because fortunately and unfortunately, with the advent of technology, they're essentially charming a piece of software. So keywords are really important. So having had the experience that you've had, obviously obtaining your master's degree, now essentially in a management role, hiring a team, what would you define to kind of be 3 attributes or keywords or even skills that you feel might be highly valued in the marketplace?
Okay. I would say first and foremost, you can check out my LinkedIn profile. Your LinkedIn profile is everything as it pertains to employees. Your resume is important, but when I interview someone, I'm typically looking at their LinkedIn profile, right? So make sure you're buttoned up there. Good headshot. I got mine at JCPenney's at the mall, but that kind of stuff. I would say, like, you need to know where you want to go and know what you want to do. I would also say it's extremely important if you get on the phone with a hiring manager that you find out what they're looking for before you tell them what you can provide, because ultimately your goal is to get, I mean, this is the way I look at it, at least, like, everyone goes out, you want to do as the best you can financially in your career, but it's not about that. For me, it's more about having a diverse experience and having a robust and challenging experience in my career. So I would say, in regards to like what you want to do, know what you want to do, and do something you're going to enjoy, right? You're going to be passionate about. I would also say, like, go and apply for jobs online is probably not the best. From my experience, I think you'll have more luck. Like, if you want to be in a certain field, demographic, etc., use your network, reach out to people, reach out to me, reach out to your professors, your friends, try and break in that way. I would also recommend, like, most companies that are in hiring mode, it's an extremely competitive job market, are using recruiters. So, like, finding recruiters for the market segment that you want to target, and breaking in through LinkedIn to their team is a strong way of going about finding more opportunities for yourself. And I would say, in regards to, like, ultimately, it depends on where you are in your career and your experience level. But, you have to go out and, like, people say, make mistakes. Like, I'd rather make less mistakes and make more right decisions. But I also want to know what I don't want to do, right? So being really specific with your time and your resources, I think, is important. But, like, what I found, like, I started in technology. I'm like, hey, this is a pretty good place to be. And then it evolved into Apple. Then, okay, like, cybersecurity, that's a real problem. It's a huge market. That's no end in sight. Okay, well, I can really dial in on this. And then even, like, down to, like, I was chosen for this job because of, like, very specific market knowledge, domain experience. So as you go in your career, your domain experience will be more and more important. But I think, like, people that go into different lanes, they actually, while you should do what you want to do and chase your dreams, etc., you have typically more leverage when you stay in a certain lane. But just earlier on in your career, find the lane you want to be in, because it gives you advantages.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds as if, during your outreach, specifically having kind of a focus and a purpose in your outreach, especially to your point, whether it be on LinkedIn or utilizing your network, is certainly important. And then obviously adaptability,
Yeah.
right? To your
Yeah,
point,
adaptability.
you were fascinated by the tech world, and then all of a sudden cybersecurity then becomes an issue, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting too, when students are trying to determine what path might be best for them. Well, am I someone who wants to continue to evolve and to, and obviously that evolution obviously poses challenges, but some people embrace those challenges. So then kind of your risk appetite comes into play as well.
Yeah, it depends on your, like, what you have going on in your personal life, really what, like, I'll tell you right now, if you're in sales, or if you're if you're in a sales role and you carry a quota for a venture-backed technology company, these people have a lot of pressure applied to them from their investors and their board, and that goes downhill. So you have to be thick-skinned, right? If that's not what you want, like, know just not like what the good sides of it are, but also know, like, the friction that comes along with it as well. It's really important. Like, I think it's those types of things are really important to think about.
Absolutely. Okay, so thank you everyone for your attention. I would love to now turn this presentation essentially over to all of you for any questions that you may have for Paul or Jeff or Stephanie. I know we have kind of a myriad of students ranging from juniors and seniors to graduate students. So I welcome each and every one of you who wishes to ask a question to please do so now, so we can continue our conversation.
Hey, Steph. Oh, sorry. I have a quick question to Stephanie. So Stephanie, I know that you said that you're working on Fidelity as a HR, and I'm also in my HR co-op. So I'm in my grad school. So this is my final MBA program at Sacred Heart University, and I'm doing my co-op at the aerospace as well too. So the aerospace that I work with is Denbury Mission Technologies, and we used to be part of UTC and like Pratt and Whitney, and then back in the COVID we merged. So I wanted to understand, like I wanted to get more explores into. I've been looking into like human resources on rotational program, and I want to see. I wish I can tell you what I do for my HR co-op, because now my company is a federal government. They don't allow me to tell confidential information to nobody and stuff. So everyone have different laws and stuff. So I have so much passion into like the rotational program, because it opens so many doors and opportunities for people that they graduate from college, and for people that they are in like grad school and stuff. How do I able to get into it? Because since I have the HR co-op experience at the aerospace, because since I'm at the aerospace, I'm learning so much in the HR, and you get to learn so much opportunities, career development and networking development. I want to see how you can able to like help me to understand it more, so that I can utilize all my skills to get into it. Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I will say, of course, I'm an advocate for rotational programs. It's been really great for me. I think that there's a few different types of rotational programs. Being that you are getting your master's, you should definitely focus on MBA-focused rotational programs. I know Fidelity has one in data analytics for HR. So if that's something you're interested, let me know. We're actually just standing it up in the next few months. But I think the best way to go about rotational programs, one, of course, you need to like look in those keywords. You're looking maybe in LinkedIn. I know JP Morgan has a great HR rotational program. But like any job, I guess you wouldn't know if there's a rotational program unless you do the research to see if those companies have them. But I would definitely focus on the MBA focused ones, because a lot of rotational programs too are for only undergrad degree students. They want to focus on kids or adults straight out of college, and they want to focus on investing the 2 years, 3 years into more junior associates. So when you're looking for rotational programs, they absolutely have MBA offered, but I would just search those keywords in LinkedIn, look just honestly a Google search for HR rotational programs. And then I do recommend, if you can, don't apply through LinkedIn. I would recommend applying through the actual website if you have to. It gets to them quicker.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, because I'm just not sure the type of HR rotational program you're looking into, but I would just do kind of keyword search, and then of course flexing and using your network.
Yeah, you definitely answer my question. That's what I wanted to like understand, because I've been looking into the rotational program, because my company used to have the leadership rotational program, and since they merged with UTC, Raytheon Technology and Pratt & Whitney, they don't have that anymore. But Raytheon Technology has that program, so my company doesn't have it that program. So that's why I have more interest in looking into it. So thank you for like answering my question.
Absolutely. And there also are other rotational programs that's not HR specific, but will give you an amazing experience. So there's leadership programs where you just rotate through all different types of businesses throughout your organization. So it doesn't have to be HR specific if you're looking just for rotational programs overall.
All right, sure. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, Eric. Does anyone else have questions for our panelists?
I also have a question for Stephanie. I just accepted a job as a it's a leadership rotational program, and I was just wondering if you had any advice, just being that I'm going to start soon. So I just want to see if you had anything else to say.
Yeah, of course. Congratulations. That's so exciting. I'm so happy for you. I think the biggest piece of advice I would have is go in with an open mind. Don't go into this program saying, I know for a fact I want to be in talent acquisition. I know that at the end of this program, that's where I'm going to land. I would not go in with that mindset. I would go in with the mindset of I'm open to anything and everything. I never in a million years thought I would end up in some sort of compensation role, and that's what I do. Half of my role is compensation, and I figured that out because I went in with an open mind. Other advice would be set up your cadences with your rotation managers. So once you're finished your rotation, don't stop meeting with that manager. keep those cadences up, keep that conversation going, because at the end of your rotation, at the end of your time in the program, you need to land somewhere, you need to get a job somewhere. So keep those relationships. Something that I always did was I would write down a fact about someone. So if they said, oh, I have 2 kids, next to John's name, I said, oh, 2 kids. So the next time we met, I would say, how are your kids doing? What's going on? So like little things like that, especially because you're in and out of your team so quickly. And then I always like to leave the team. I always left my teams with either a recommendation of what they can improve, or I would leave my team with a strategy. Like I created a document, a process document, because the team just wasn't tracking their process correctly, in my opinion. So I made them a tracking document, and they use that moving forward. So now my name's on it. When they use that document, I think a staff, and that's just one way to continue to, build your network. But it's amazing. You're gonna have a great time. I'm so happy for you. It's gonna be great.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, Kara, for asking that question. Does anybody else have any questions? No.
I have a question. Sorry.
Sure.
I actually have a question for Stephanie. Whichever, however you want to answer this is fine. But I just had a question in terms of as an HR management role, what's the most challenging thing that you've encountered that you could speak about? I guess maybe either a most common or something that's either challenging that might be challenging to overcome, I guess, in that sort of position for HR.
Absolutely. I would say there's 2 ways to answer this question. I think what's really important in working in HR is that you have a high EQ. So you have high emotional intelligence and understanding, the tone of the conversation, because some things that I handle are employee relations issues. So they're very sensitive. And also I deal with compensation. Compensation is a huge part of everyone's life in the working world. It shouldn't be the most important thing, but it greatly affects everyone. So dealing with compensation, so having high emotional intelligence is really important. I would say the most challenging part of my role is navigating ambiguous situations. So what I mean by that is I could get a question from an associate and it makes no sense to me. I'm like, I don't even get where you're going with this question. And then kind of looking at that and digging into it, asking questions to really figure out the root of that question is really challenging. And then there's always your focus, your head's down. I don't know, when you're let's say for school, you're writing a paper, your head's down, and then you get a text and you have to do something else. That happens to me all the time in work. I'm creating something, I'm doing something, I'm in a meeting, and then an associate comes to me with an issue and my entire day is derailed because I have to help that associate and deal with whatever issue, whatever question they have. So it's difficult kind of going back and saying, what are my priorities? What's important to me? What can I adjust? What can I change to make sure that I get my top priorities taken care of? And I will say I have a to-do list every day, and there's definitely items that just keep getting pushed to the next day, to the next day, to the next day. But as things come up, you kind of just have to, figure out how to deal with what's most important, especially in HR. It feels like everything's an emergency. And taking a step back and be like, no, it's all good. It's just HR, we're okay. So that's definitely something I struggle with.
So, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. I just have a quick question, right? So you work in the HR, so I do as well too, but I wish I can tell you more about what I do, but I want you to tell me your brain or your skills or something. So this is my my 4th internship. I have done 3 internship, and this is my last co-op. I don't have to do for college or anything. I've been out of college since 2020, but I'm just trying to do more internship to have the experience on my resume, and so how does it look like, for example, since I'm finishing up my MBA, and since I have 4 internship on my resume, which is so much phenomenal experience, when it comes to a job search and applying for a job, do you think it's much difficult for me to for someone who have those kind of skill set and experience on their resume, and plus going to school? I'm such a lifelong learner and continue my education. Do you think it's a big plus to like mention that on like interview, or like do you think does this set me apart from like other candidate? That's what I'm trying to like, I don't know if my question, sorry.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And that's definitely something that I leaned on for my interviews, was the fact that I had vastly different experiences throughout my college career with my internships. I worked for a company of 100 people. I worked for a company with 60,000 people. So I made sure that I varied my experiences, because when I was having and going through my interviewing questions, I was able to use so many different stories and so many different points as to why I was answering that question or whatnot. So yes, I think having a varied resume is a huge plus, and definitely something that recruiters, especially in the HR space, look for, because like I had just mentioned, every day is different. You do something a little different every time you do it. So having as much experience leading up to your job is really important. So I think you're in great shape.
All right, thank you. And also, it's interesting when you mention Fidelity, because my company, we are one of the customers. Like when people are going on like family medical leave, I take care of like those kind of projects for my manager. So that's what I do as well too. So that's kind of, I'm all over around like in HR. I do everything like different stuff every day. So HR is broad. So yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you for answering my question.
Of course.
Okay, thanks, Eric. So Paul and Jeff, I'm just being mindful of time here. As we wrap this evening, what would be the biggest piece of advice that you could give to our undergraduate and graduate students that have joined us this evening?
Paul, go ahead.
Paul, you want to go first?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll take that. No, that's a good question. I would say, if you want to accelerate your career, right? If you want to have a successful career in business, you need to be willing to be bold, right? And put yourself in vulnerable situations where you may fail. And that takes courage, right? And I'd say that's my biggest piece of advice, is if you want to separate yourself as an employee, to become a high performer, maybe work your way to a leadership position, you need to be bold, you need to be outspoken, challenge inefficiencies, right? If something's not being done as efficiently or as effective as it could be, be willing to be vocal, take a seat at the table, get your voice out there, and continue to challenge yourselves. I'll say, putting yourselves in those types of situations where you may fail, like I said, it takes courage, but that's okay, right? That's how you grow as a person. And, it's okay to fail, right, guys? Sometimes things in the moment seem so much bigger than they really are, right? So if things don't always go your way, just keep pressing forward. In enough time, it's behind you. There will be more battles. So that's my advice.
Well, that's very sage advice for sure. And Jeff, how about yourself?
Sure. So I read the Steve Jobs book when I was working at Apple, and something I found interesting that he did was when he was building the first Mac prototype, he was able to get into the Xerox lab. Xerox, big company, offices in Norwalk, but global company at the time, innovative company at the time. And he was able to get into the development lab, and he saw the prototype for a mouse, which he stole and then made that his own. And Apple is now what Apple is. And I thought that was really interesting because, and I've applied similar principles to my career where I'm trying to learn from as many people as I possibly can and then make it my own. I use the phrase like, I'm going to take that idea and I'm going to make it my own all the time. And I try and not steal, but have mentors that help me, that guide me and take their best practices and make them my own. But like, it's like, you have to make yourself like open to that kind of thing too. Like asking someone for feedback or, hey, like, give it to me straight, give it to me hard, tell me like, don't hurt my feelings kind of thing. And then I take talk to all these smart people who have done really well for themselves, take their ideas and make it my own. And it's working okay. So.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be. Okay, so it seems like some of the key takeaways here is obviously adaptability, having a very high EQ, as Stephanie has said, and being bold and being open to obviously change and challenge, which obviously everybody on this Zoom has been, as we have all lived through this pandemic over the last 2 years. And then, you know, finally to continue to be active learners, even once you leave, you know, the halls of the university, to continue to be curious, to continue to be actively engaged, you know, on the learning spectrum. And, you know, as you can see from all of our graduates, good things will come. So, so thank you all for being here this evening. If anybody needs to get in touch with any of our panelists, I will put my email address in the chat box here. So don't hesitate to contact me. Also, as I mentioned earlier, we are hoping to, hopefully the recording is captured this evening for the event, and we'll be able to post it to our Shoe Connect website, which is our career dev portal that can be found on the Sacred Heart website, and has it's kind of a one-stop shop for all things career. So I encourage all of you to visit it often, and hopefully we'll be able to share tonight's event as well, in case you wanted to circle back over the next you know, couple of months or years while you're here, and you know, just refresh your memory for some of the thoughts and experiences that were shared tonight. So to Stephanie, Jeff, and Paul, thank you so very much. To Professor Macari and Professor Andreassi, thank you both for your help in promoting the event. Professor Macari was terrific and incredibly instrumental in contacting all of his alum for me, so I am grateful. And to all of you on the Zoom here this evening, don't forget to drop into Career Services. We're here for you always, here on West Campus and obviously on main campus in McMahon Commons. So thank you to everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sheila.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.